Unit 4.5, double selection. Double selection. So what we'll be looking at is an if-else statement. It's called double selection because one of these two things will happen. Either the condition in the if is true, and we execute the code in here, or the condition in the if is false, so we go to the else. So else will be considered a not for this. Okay, if this is true, execute what's inside here, but this is not true, go to the else and do this. So what we have is a double selection. We have two possible outcomes, this one or this one. Unlike the if statement by itself, that will be a single selection because if this is true, it does this, but there is no other option. But here we have two options. One of these will happen. Okay, one of them would happen. We just have a double selection. We have two things that we want to select, of which we would only select one based on the condition. So here we have a couple examples we'll run through just to see how this works. Example 1. The variables that we had before, x and y, they're going to be back to 10. So the if statement is asking, is x and y the same thing? Yeah, they are. They're both 10. So this would run. See, this statement here is very important to get right, because once you figure out the actual true or false from this, then you'll get the structure right. But if you make a mistake here, you mess up the whole thing, especially if we had more of them, okay? So right now, it should print x is equal to y. I'm going to run that and check. It's going to be the last thing. X is equal to y, and so it works. Let's keep going down and do some more examples. We'll just run through a lot of them so we could get a peek into how these things behave. So here we are asking, is it true that x is not equal to y? But that's not true, right? Because they're both 10. So since this is false, it will jump to the else, and it will run this. Let's check that out. Save and run. See, the last thing is, first one was it's equal, and now it says x is equal to y. Well, let's see how that works. Oh, mistake. See, didn't do this one, but it did this one, okay? And it says x is equal to y, which is true because it's not that was here, so this will be false. All right, going down. Next example. Look at example 3 here. Okay, in this case here, we are actually making some changes. So it says, is it true that they're equal? We know that they are. And so the two of these are going to change. This will not run, so there will be no printout. Nothing would print, but the values would change. X will become 20 because we're taking the 10, adding it on to the 10 and assigning it back, so it's 20. Then this one becomes 20 times 10, which will be 200. So let's just run this, and we're going to see that nothing prints. Okay, we still have the same last two print, that they're both equal. And now that they're changed, let's go ahead and make some more. Here's some more examples. Example 4. Is it true that x is less than y? Let's see. That's 20. I think this would be 200. So let me pick a little note here. I believe x would be 20 here, and y would be 200 here. How come 200? Because y is still 10 from before. X became 20, and we are multiplying the 10 by the 20, and we get 200. Is it true that 20 is less than 2? Yes, it is. So it should print that. Let's go ahead and run that and check. All right. X is less than y. It does print that. So it's working as we suspected. Now, it doesn't print the else because the else is a not, right? So let's just make sure we get this clear. If this is less than, the not would be x is greater than or equal to y. That would be the not, okay? And that's not the case here, so the first one prints. We keep going down, we're doing more examples. Example 5. Ooh, look at this statement here, huh? Not x greater than or equal to y. Well, wait a minute. If I distribute the not, this should become this, right? Because if I distribute the not greater than or equal to, it should turn into less than. The equal to is gone as well. Just remember that from before. So let's see what happens. Let's run that. Let's check out the print. Oh, last one said x is equal to y. Let's see what it says here. X is equal to y. That makes sense because x is currently 20 and y is currently 200, and this turns into this, and this is true, so therefore that prints just like it printed before. So we have x is less than y, and in this one here we have x is equal to y, and it prints that because this is what the printout is. And you may say in this point here, say, oh, that's not true. You're not printing what this thing is saying. Okay, this is where logic comes in. Okay, this is where the logic comes in. This is the correct printout because it's saying x is less than y. This is saying x is equal to it, but it's actually saying x is less than y when we distribute the not. So, this is a little bit tricky here. So we want to make sure that we understand what the printout should be. So I'm going to copy this, put this here, because they're the same things, right? So let me go ahead and run it now just to make sure my logic's correct. So run it, and it says x is less than y, which is correct, okay? Because x is definitely 20 and y is 200. So let's go ahead now and try example 6. All right, so in example 6, is it true that x is less than y and y is less than or equal to 200? And then we have this print out at the end. Now realize this print is not inside the else, it's not inside the if, it's after this entire structure double selection is finished. Why am I doing this? Because on a quiz, this is how it's going to look. It's going to have some statement and some print at the end. And based on the number of statements above, we're going to evaluate what the outcome is. So we got to go through this carefully. Let's see. X is currently 20. That's where we got it from up here. Y is 200. We didn't make any changes. We just did prints here. So they're still the same when we get down here. So is 20 less than 200? Yes, it is. And, okay, both has to be true. Is y less than or equal to 200? Yes, it is equal to 200. So that makes that true as well and makes this true as well. The and is true. We're doing this, not this. This else does not run. Only the if runs. Double selection. I'm selecting the first of the two. You never get the case where both run in a double selection, okay? You have two possible ways. Think of it as you reach to an end, and there are two roads that you can go. Either travel the road on the left or travel the road on the right. You can't go both. So it's either we're doing this guy or this one. Seems like we're doing this guy, okay? So we get y mod equal 10. Okay, so we got to take the 200, mod it by 10, assign it back to y. I think y should be 0. Let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. So we're printing x equal plus y equals, and then we drop the cursor to a new line after. Let's see what we got. Okay, it says y is 0. This is what we expected, right? We expected the y to be 0. And x is 19. Well, how did we get 19? Well, it was 20. Took 1 off. Okay, minus minus means take 1 away. Okay, let's go ahead now and check out example 7, the last one. So it says, is it true that x is less than y and y is less than or equal to 200? Well, remember, these things changed. Let's make a note. X is now 19. Remember, we saw that? And y is now 0. So is it true that x is less than y? No. No. X is 19, y is 0. X is not less than y. Short circuit. Now I'm putting it all together here, so you got to think. The minute this is false, it sees an AND, the whole thing's false. Why? Because 0 times anything is 0. I know I said this before, but when you see it in code, sometimes you got to get reminded of how it works. These are all bits. Booleans are bits. And is a multiplication, or is an addition. So if I'm going to take this guy and do an AND with this guy, and this first one is false, whole thing is false. What that means? Skip this, then do this. Right? Double selection, short circuit, AND statement, all mixed in. So here we're missing this one because this is not true. It's false. So we do, since it's false, we do the not false, which is true, which is the else. We come here. Y is minus equal to x. Okay. So we got to figure out what that is, and then x times equal y. Let's see what we get. Let's run it, and then we can figure out where those numbers are coming from. Ooh, negative 361 and negative 19. Let's see if that makes sense. Let's first check out y, because y happens first. X is currently 19. Okay. Y is currently 0, so we're doing 0 minus 19. That clearly gets us negative 19. Okay. Then, since y changed, we're now using negative 19 here, not 0. Okay, the y value changed. So now we get to this point, we're doing a negative 19 times a 19. Okay, so this is saying 19 times 19, the negative 19, I should say. But because we have 19 times that negative 19, is 19 times 19 361? That's the question. Well, I'm going to bring up my calculator and check that out. I want to make sure. 19 times 19. Yay, 361. So because we get 361, we know we're right. It was a negative 19. That's why we got the negative sign. So that's double selection. Okay, that's double selection. Now, it's only two. It's either this or that. When we get to our next section, we will look into nesting versus stacking, and we look into where we have multiple selection, more than two, to see how that works. That'll be coming up next, but for now, that's all we have for this section, double selection. Let's recap really quickly. Double selection. What is a double selection? It's an if and an else. The if condition needs to be true for the if block to run. If the condition in the if is false, the else block runs. It's only two outcomes. That's why it's called double selection. There's only two selections. So once you figure out which one runs, then you execute that one. Be careful with your logic as you're coming down, because the logic that occurs in here, coming from the truth table, coming from the Boolean logic, needs to be evaluated correctly. Otherwise, the whole statement, the whole structure, the whole logic goes wrong. Now, this is where your code could have what is called a logic error. Because if you make any mistakes here with your logic, your code's going to be a little bit behaving a little strangely. One of the best things to do is to print what you think should be happening. Okay? When you write your structures, print, even though it doesn't have anything to do with the app. I know printing has to do with the program, or the programmer prints. The user will not see this, but we will be able to see what the app's doing, such that we can make any corrections if we make a logic error. And again, you will make them, so make it a habit to print. So remember, I had a mistake down here where I was saying less than, or I was saying equal to when it's supposed to be less than. So these are the things you want to make sure you print, and check out your logic as you walk through them. Again, double selection. This brings us to the end of Unit 4.5.